Hey, you guys, what a day it has been so far over the last, not quite 40 hours. We've had this thing going on in Israel that has taken over the news media, that everybody is screaming war, 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 instead of like, let's look at this and see what happens. Let us find peaceful solutions. I'm just not ready to declare it either way yet. So that's kind of what I'm talking about today is not Israel so much as just the kind of war and mouth running and ridiculousness. I'm not going to war with anybody, Java man, but apparently our government is gearing up for some kind of war with the Palestinians based upon what the news media is saying. My husband has been watching the news media on nonstop repeat here in the bedroom, and I've been having to resort to these and listening to a whole lot of music because I just don't want to hear. I want to read through it once or twice a day and be done with it. I wanted to talk today about the anti-Katie Joy community, something I've observed that I've just kind of hung back and not said much about, but I've said a few things about it recently because I'm just kind of fed up. Okay. Let me introduce myself in case you've strayed here and you don't know who the heck I am. Who is that woman with those crazy ass glasses? Hey, Cheryl. I'm Suzanne Tinkermeyer. I used to write for a place called Pathos, a column called No Longer Quivering, and I have a hair in my mouth. It was about the evangelical quiverful movement. I used to write about religion. Okay, so that was my jam. Don't believe anybody I'm going to talk about today. Don't even be rude to them. Brenda C. First things first, you love my glasses. Yeah, I've had these a long time. I just need to keep switching back and forth. These are bigger. I can see better. So I got my sassy pants and my sassy glasses on, even though I never like the way I look in a white blouse on this stupid thing. It's so funny looking at my live video while I'm doing this crap and seeing what my shirts look like. Stuff that I absolutely love, like this shirt with the little peach lines on it. I don't like the way it looks on the camera. Oh, well. So that's neither here nor there. What I want to talk about was something that we dealt with at Pathos, and this was something that bit the clam in the ass without a box of Kleenex, which is having veracity in what you're reporting, using the best practices manual, continually reviewing where you are with stuff. So if you are getting gossiping about somebody, and God knows we did, I would hear from these unnamed Duggar insiders all the time. And they would say stuff that you just don't use it unless you can verify it. Anybody and their brother can contact you and say, well, Josh Duggar drinks his bathwater and he molests kittens. And you might sit there and listen to that and go, But when you start asking around and you start looking at what evidence there is, you tell yourself, it's like, there's not a whole lot there. That's somebody just wanting to stir trouble. Or somebody's so eager to gossip about some little scrap of some stupid thing they've heard that they invent it and they extrapolate. I'm not going to name names here, but I think we can all guess that that's what a box of Kleenex without a box of Kleenex has done. How many times? I distinctly remember when the TSA, Homeland Security landed. The reason I was saying TSA is I was bitching earlier that I want an airplane just so I can avoid TSA in the airlines. I want to buy my own private plane, but that's not happening. Anyway, that's why I said TSA, because that's TSA is in my brain today. Homeland Security raided the Duggar compound in some limited or expanded fashion. I can't really know. Jim Bob Duggar says, no, it didn't happen at all. I've seen photographs. I know they were there. Well, for sure, we know they shut down Josh's automotive franchise and seized the computers so they could see who was looking at that child porn. And while this was going on, both Without a Box of Kleenex and myself were talking to the same people who were contacting us and saying, hey, look, this is going on. This other thing's going on. This is being said. This is happening. And her and I were having conversations with each other because still at that point, November 2019, we're still friendly with each other. And we're sharing information, which didn't go well. That was one of the first times I really had a serious falling out with her because she was getting information, I was getting information. We were getting a lot of the same things, but we were also getting different stuff. She shared for the first time some stuff I had told her that I was getting, and I did the same, and then she jumped all over me. But here's the thing. That was one of the few times that I was just careful. I was not so careful because I wanted hit numbers, because I could see that she was screeching out this stuff and getting major hit numbers. So I ran an experiment to see what would happen. And what happened was I wasn't getting the hit numbers, she was. And that was all well and good until I started jumping into the let's just run our mouths with zero evidence sphere, which I really can't do. It really runs counter to everything you're doing if you're trying to be a legitimate, responsible, I don't even want to say writer anymore, media outlet. Because I'm not going to say journalist, and reporter is probably closer to what it is. But to be responsible, like I said, Pathos had a best practices manual that we all had to abide by, and it talked about this very thing. It talked about sharing rumors with no basis in reality that you could not confirm. And there may have been times when I did share that stuff, but I always marked it. Hey, this is what people are saying. She's quite deceitful, Julie. I'm sorry that you got sucked into that. I trained her. I had a terrible time with her. So you have to mark these things as rumors, is what I'm saying. So here we are. How many years later? We're in 2023 now. We're past the third anniversary of our major fallout. Okay, so 3 years ago, her and I had our major falling out, and she never bothered contacting me. We were supposed to have done a stream together. She stood me up on a day when I was dreadfully sick with my asthma, and I was very upset. And then when people pointed out that she had been plagiarizing my Pathos content for some time, I was just done with her. Okay. I think if writers or creators are fast and loose with the facts, I stop paying attention to them. Cheryl, that's exactly right. Okay. That's what I want to talk about. You can't play fast and loose with the facts. You have to verify everything. And if I had $1 for everything I got that I could not verify, that I did not use, I might be able to buy that stupid used Cessna I've got my eyes on that I want so bad. I'm just tired of dealing with TSA in the airports. Living overseas, that's the drag, as you're always buying tickets to go back to the States for one dumb thing or another, where a private plane might be the way to go. But I can't talk my husband into it, so I've got to figure out another way. She is problematic on so many different levels. But here's the thing. Greyhound, there's no Greyhound, Java Man. And I don't even want to think about what riding Greyhound through El Salvador and Nicaragua would be like, much less Mexico and the cartels. I would like to avoid the cartels too, not just. And I had to laugh because I saw a show the other day where they were examining one of Costa Rica's worst prisons, and La Reforma. And the guy doing the reality show was saying, this is the worst prison in all of Central America, blah, blah, blah. I was like, dude, no. He was talking about violence in Costa Rica and deaths and all this other stuff. It's just not even remotely what he's saying. So you really have a responsibility to report these things accurately if you're going to cover anything. So Tabitha Jane screwed up this week, and she's not the first newbie who has. That's one bad thing about this community is people who are not OGs who come in and report on Katie Joy. I plotted a route on Greyhound from Washington, D.C. to Las Vegas, takes you to Atlanta, then Dallas, Houston, then LA, Los 3 days. Java, man, I got to talk about my Greyhound experiences, which are not that pleasant from back when I used to play music. I think it took me 3 days to get across Texas to Odessa. So maybe back in the day when I was writing it was not such a rapid thing. Maybe they've changed that. So back to being factual. Okay. So Tabitha Jane was somebody that lives in KJ's local area, I think, or maybe just the state, but close enough that she can go and show up when there's been hearings and get copies of court papers that the rest of us cannot get. And that's been very helpful. Having somebody on the boots on the ground who can go to these things has been helpful. I said I was going to go to the trial, but my husband has twisted my arm to stop talking about her mostly, so I try not to. And I think it would be almost too traumatic to be there. It would be like the Josh Duggar thing. There's no way I could have sat there for that. I can tell you that. Even though I kept saying, oh, I'm going to go. Well, Tabitha Jane is there, so she's able to pull the documents. She's able to go to these hearings and things, and that's not a bad thing. I actually like her for that. This week, she made a pretty big error because she started doing some research. Well, she is on a learning curve, Steve, but I got to talk about that too. Okay. She's not perfect. Let her accept her mistake and move on. Steve, here's the thing. She's not accepting her mistake. She's playing the victim and what I've seen, and she's trying to boo-hoo and say, oh, blah, blah, blah. But her mistake she made was that she tried to chase down KJ's DUI. She pulled the wrong Catherine Paulson in Minnesota, not researching, not asking anybody, but just making the assumption and publish the information, identifying the wrong person, the wrong Catherine Paulson. She got the wrong person. So she exposed the wrong person in doing so. And I don't think that's ever right. We don't go real life. We don't expose all of people's informations. Yeah, even reading small descriptions of what Josh Duggar watched was disturbing. Exactly. So anyway, it is a somewhat common name in that part of the world. It was a bad misstep. Here's the thing. When you make missteps, sometimes you have to say sorry and say, hey, I made a misstep. And you have to say, I'm going to do better and move on. You don't start blaming the people that outed your mistake. And you don't start pretending to be the victim. I've seen this again and again and again and again in this stupid community. So many people that have done some pretty heinous things in their pursuit of without a box of Kleenex. And when they're called on their behavior, they flip out or they disappear. I don't understand. A lot of these newbies will do this. They will show up, get a lot of things wrong, and then flip out if you point it out. When it comes to KJ, we have to make sure the info is spot on if we put it out as fact. Steve, that is my complaint. That is the thing. We absolutely do. So anybody coming to this community to be somebody that talks about the heinous crimes of without a box of Kleenex, you better damn well double check all your info. Like I said, this was something you were required to do when I wrote for Pathos. You were not allowed to just throw things out there as fact without backing evidence. It's what journalists do. It's what reporters do. It's what people in the commentary community really need to do before they throw things out as fact. I had that happen to me. I have corrected new players, so to speak, and I got crapped on when I had the clear facts. Laugh out loud. Steve, I've had it happen to me. Okay, here. I've had people tell me, oh, you don't possibly know what you're talking about. Oh my goodness. I do know what I'm talking about. I'm dealing with this pile of poo for I don't know how long now, 4 or 5 years with her. Her heart is in the right place. Yes. She does need to be more careful. That's my whole point. Hey, and good morning from here in Costa Rica. I know you're in Norway where it is nice and evening. Yeah, and her tricks and her smearing. That's exactly right. That is the problem with when we make these mistakes, when we let people in our community make these mistakes without saying, hey, you need to correct that. That's the problem, because KJ uses these things. She uses these things against the community. She tries to say, oh, we're all just a bunch of lunatics. We're all obsessional. We're all obsessed with her. Until I see something stupid going on, and it's like, oh yeah, this exists. I don't know if I'm the ultimate OG, because there were some other people like Steve that had to clue me in, that knew about her that I did not. All I knew is that she had stood me up, and I had no idea why. I thought I had done something wrong. Maybe I pissed her off. And this was after having knocked heads with her a few times and having attempted to steer her in the Pathos way. I am ground zero OG as far as YouTube. You most certainly are. Toad says the same thing. I appreciate the hard copies and the whole going to the courtroom thing that she's able to do. That's why I am hoping that she can take the correction, apologize, and move on and be more careful in the future. Because that's one thing we don't want to do, is we don't want to add any more traumatized people to this situation. And we all know that can happen in this community. Remember when in this community? Remember when without a box of Kleenex outed somebody's license plate in Florida during the Brian Laundrie thing? I had a lot of problems with that. And there's a butterfly that has come up to the window and is looking at me. Oh, that's cool. Anyway, I'm so distracted. Had nothing to do with the Laundrie family. It had nothing to do with the car, nothing to do with anything to do with the poor Gabby Petito situation. But Katie Joy blasted this person over and over and over again until somebody was forced her to drop it. Look at all what she's done with the Peeping Tom butterfly. Java Man, I get Peeping Tom hummingbirds all the time. They're actually funny because they get offended. They come up to the window and look at me and make a very offended squeak and go off. You see, KJ is now claiming I claim she swatted me, and I have people, third parties, messaging her. Neither was true. KJ doesn't care what she willfully puts out, gross misinformation about me. Steve, I saw that, and that's wrong, because you have never claimed that KJ swatted you. She has claimed that you have had her swatted, and that all of us have had her swatted. Hell no. I have always said, do not go real life with this person. This is somebody that it likes to play the victim level, boss level. Okay. She will take anything that is said and done against her and twist it until she is a victim. We're watching her right now with her exposing pictures of her child, a space. Now, they're old pictures, of course, but she's exposing her child again, and it is, I'm guessing, because something didn't go well. Poor V gets trotted out, dog gets trotted out. We've both seen this the last couple of days, both of them. She accused her neighbors of damaging her gay pride flag. I remember that one. In reality, for the pictures, it seems to be sun and wind damage. Shava, that's exactly right, because those polyester ripstop fabric flags, they don't last forever. They're extremely easy to damage with sun and wind. I don't think Tabitha intentionally done anything wrong. She apologized, also made a video apologizing. I've made a mistake before when called out. I apologized, corrected it. Tabitha's learning. Yes, she is, country girl Brenda, and I hope that she takes that lesson to heart and that she stops doing it. Because these are the things that harm the community and that KJ uses against us, okay? She's getting worse since her latest court case is not going her way. I knew it was not going to go her way. It was just, there was no way it was ever going to. And 7M was not going to back up. They are not, when you're dealing with religious extremists, I'm just going to call them that, they don't back down. The alcohol is probably taking a toll on her. Probably. I haven't caught up on it either myself, Steve. I'm still trying to catch up on everything. I've just been, like I said, trying to avoid the Israeli war news because my husband is just fixated on it and it is just too much for me. I can't handle it. I've recently come to the conclusion that I may be an empath because there are things that I just don't like, that I can't be around, that I have to do like this from. And my husband watching news all the time, these things have to go on my head and I have to just listen to lovely music so I don't stress out. Alcohol and Adderall. Toad better start cranking out those guitars. Those guitars. Those kit guitars. My ex, he used to make guitars from scratch. I've certainly seen him do it a number of times, even banjos from scratch. Why is Toad messing around with these kits? If he was truly a guitar maker, he would be doing it all from scratch. One correction she showed the flag while talking about the storm, to turn around a couple months later and blame neighbor. Yeah, it's whatever will get her the most social media presence. I'm an empath. I get it. You have to be careful about news overload. Exactly, Brenda. And I even found I have to be careful about what I watch on TV with fictional things because I will take on the emotions and get all weirded out and things will happen. And that's not good. Steve, have a good work day. Enjoy it if you can. Try not to think about this BS because it is not worth a hill of beans or squirt of pee. So I'm ranting about this because this is one of these things that I've seen happen again and again and again and again and again in this community, and it just keeps happening. So I'm hoping that anybody decides to come over in KJ, that you will just make sure that all of your information is as correct as you can make it, even if you have to delay, speak it out. More fun to binge of Righteous Gemstones. Yes, it is. And I always like to say that Judy Gemstone is my spirit animal, but not really. In reality, I'm probably more like poor old Keith wandering around. So, yes, I'm still working on my Righteous Gemstones reviews. I don't know why it took me so long to start doing reviews of that. I'm trying to do more book reviews and that sort of thing and stay away from KJ because my husband is right. She's toxic. He said he didn't like what he was seeing me do and say and my actions and how obsessed I was getting and how scary when I was talking about her all the damn time. And I get that. The other day I was reading back through my notes that I'd taken from the moment that I discovered her deception through about a year ago. And I have volumes of all the stuff that she did. And it's scary. I had been thinking about writing a book about the situation, but now I'm like, no, I don't want that energy in my head. And what kind of energy is that? Well, if you watch your Righteous Gemstones, there was a scene where Judy Gemstone beats up this lady named Denham, her car. She's got a little Nissan Cube that's bright yellow. Judy has this shopping cart and she's running it into the cube as hard as she can. And it is the craziest frenetic energy you've ever seen, frenetic energy. And we've got Judy just completely unhinged. That is the kind of energy that I think that Without a Box of Kleenex brings to this world. This destructo, let's just burn it all down. Let's not care what it looks like. Let's not care what anybody thinks. Let's just burn it all down. And it's just like jumping around. Maybe that's the Adderall. I don't know. How many multi-million-dollar lawsuits are grounds for divorce? Asking for a friend. I would think one. One would be enough, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know. I have just been very careful now not to partake in that at all. I don't want to be drug in any of her lawsuits. Early on, I was approached by somebody connected to 7M, and I said, no, I will not testify for you or her. If I am called to testify, to where she started calling herself a journalist, I will take the fifth, because I had something to do with that creation, because I mocked her without understanding that she didn't realize I was mocking her and making fun of her at the time. I think she doesn't get nuances in speech. She doesn't get nuances. She doesn't get sarcasm. She doesn't get that at all in other people. She has a complete lack of being able to read what other people are telling her in context, or to pick up what is actually going on in context. I like to say, I like to sit back and watch everything and then make my own decisions. There are people that are beloved in this community that I can't stand, but I don't feel any kind of onus on me to tell the world, hey, I don't like this person. Not at all. She has no sense of humor either. No, Brenda, she has none. No sense of humor, no ability to read people. It's Righteous Jim, so it's kind of like Arrested Development or Community, but about churchy stuff. It kind of is. Hey, Ginger, and happy Thanksgiving. I was really pissed off when I discovered it. I had missed Canadian Thanksgiving, because I usually go to this Canadian restaurant here and have Canadian Thanksgiving every year. I dropped the ball this year. It would get so hard on my psyche to be able to deal with that every single day. They didn't cover nuance in her Spanish language degree, or Spanish, it seems. She doesn't get nuance. One time she was asking me, that's an interesting question, Brenda. Do you think she's a sociopath? I've thought about this a lot. I think that okay, these are just my opinions, and I'm not a trained psychologist or psychiatrist in any way, shape, or form. I have worked in communities as a social worker with diagnosable things, with various people who are diagnosed with various things. And if I had to go, just based on what little knowledge I have of that, I would say that we're looking at somebody with NPD and narcissism. There's some washers missing in that brain. She is just not able to deal like anybody else can, like most normal people can. Let me say, and normal is a construct. It doesn't mean just this. Normal is a huge range. For me, it wasn't about the mistake. It was about the responsive crying victim, just like KJ. That was my problem. Just another troll. That's my problem with how Tabitha Jane reacted. If you cry victim, I'm just kind of done with you at that point. So I don't know if she's a sociopath. She does seem to tick a lot of the boxes for sociopathy. She does. But what is actually going on in that brain, I have no clue at this point. I just keep seeing MPD in my brain and thinking it's somewhere along there. It's just not good. And that makes me really sad for her, because I think she was probably raised in such a way that created this, because Those type of personality disorders don't happen in a vacuum. They usually happen in the pressure cooker of a dysfunctional family that creates this crap. You wouldn't want to see in her brain. I'm not sure I would either, considering she took my sarcastic words where she asked me how I made money and said, yeah, I'm making $50,000 a month selling Josh Duggar rumors to the tabloid press. And I was as sarcastic as I'm being right then about it. And she took being God honest seriously and has repeated that lie that I told her that that was how I made my money. No such thing. I have never sold a rumor to a tabloid at all. Never would I do so. Now, I do have contacts in the tabloids that I have talked to, and they've talked to me and reached out. Just like I have contacts in the media. This week I reached out. Just like I have contacts in the media. This week I had 2 media outlets reach out to me for deep background information on something, and I gave them the information. And I'm not saying, hey, I'm being quoted, because that's my world. That's what happens here. Definitely narcissistic. Yeah. Just horrified and fascinated by what makes her this way. Kind of like people, like many of us in the South who stand outside and watch tornadoes. Brenda, yeah, guilty. I think that, but here's also the other thing. I grew up in an extremely dysfunctional, large Cajun family with a huge amount of alcoholics, people with substance abuse issues. I'm 63. I don't have substance abuse issues. I have struggled my entire life with various, I don't want to say mental health diagnoses, because I haven't. And I have been into therapy for, I don't take psychotropic drugs except for a couple of short times when I had situational depressions. And I came out of that pressure cooker without anything. And I have people in my larger family who have too. So I'm not really sure why some people end up with MPD and or schizophrenia or whatever coming out of dysfunctional families, and why some don't. Even in the same family, I don't know what that answer is. It's like people who take things like OxyContin and get hooked and can't do without it. And then people like myself and my friend Reva, we've said we couldn't wait to get off of it because we didn't like feeling like a turnip falling off the truck by the side of the road with no emotions, no nothing. I don't like that. I don't like being chemically altered. I don't like that for some reason. I would rather have reality. Even when I've had to take edibles for my asthma, microdose, I don't like the stone. I don't like the way it makes me feel. And that's just how I am wired. Give me reality, even unpleasant reality, every day of the week. I can always go disassociate and not think about reality if it's too much for me to take. So I would hate to give a final diagnosis of what I think is wrong with her, because it could be any number of things. But I am interested in her family of origin because, like I said, it all starts there. Family of origin is what happens with the way we're raised, and you sink or swim, develop these things or not. I don't know. It's like the OxyContin thing. I don't know why some people's brains are different than others and why they take on these things. Why they take on these things at all is just a whole pile of no telling. I like knowing what I'm doing. I'd hate to hear about it later. Country girl Brenda, I experimented enough with that stuff in my teens to ever want to go back there, especially during my first short-lived marriage, because I was married to a musician. So you can guess that there was practically every kind of substance known to mankind flowing through our house on a daily basis. Even sometimes it got so bad at one point, the local cop shop sat outside our house doing a surveillance. And it was so silly because we weren't dealing. Just my ex was doing all this stuff. She said so much contradictory stuff about her family, but she steals other stories to make it seem like her life was like those she covers. And that, Maria, is the key, I think. She steals other people's stories. She hasn't used my personal story of joining and then leaving my old quiverful church lately, but there are videos of her doing it, her saying what happened to her and trying to say it was the exact same thing that happened to me. She even used the same words that I said, word for word, and how I covered it, how the things I said, the ridiculous things that happened. And I was pretty flabbergasted. I got to tell you guys, of all the things that have happened to me between her and I, that was the most hurtful, that moment. I knew she was stealing my content and reusing it. And she took some rumors that I told her about the Duggars before I ever knew she was even interested in covering the Duggars, and used it as fact. Lately, she's telling stories that sound like they came from Jill's book. That's exactly right. She's plagiarizing from Jill's book. This is the thing that has delayed my own book going out for quite some time now, besides the endless rewrites, because I changed my mind on how much I'm willing to reveal about some stuff. And I don't want a former church member showing up here with a shotgun. At the same time, I'm balancing it with, if you wanted me to talk better about you, you should have behaved better, because we got a fair amount of those stories too, including like a story about a chick that I've called Shrimpleton in the book, because she kept talking about writing a book called Shrimpleton. And her story went really weird. If Katie Joy covered herself, she would have endless content. She acts like she's perfect, but I bet in reality, she doesn't live perfectly at all. Julie, all you do is look some of the videos that she's posted about cleaning her house. It is like, I am not the best housekeeper in the world. I don't use a maid all the time here either. I sometimes do for things like windows, which need doing again. I got to call the lady to come do my windows, because I don't have a great balance anymore, so I don't climb the ladder to do the windows. And all the windows you got to climb the ladder to get to the top. So she has showed like crumbs and just stuff at her sofa. It's just unbelievably bad. And we've seen how she treats her house and some of the things that go down. And it's just like, oh my word. Eventually you have to break down and clean. I don't care who you are. Either clean or surrender to a hoarder's type situation. She's not in a hoarder's type situation that I can see, but it is sure enough dirty, everything I've seen about her house. Oh, those videos are there, Julie. You just have to dig. They are there. And she has gotten so much pushback about that. And she's talked lately over and over, the cleaning crew that comes in and cleans my house. Well, she might have a cleaning crew coming in once a month now, maybe, but I'm thinking now it's probably not, because she's trying to save money, because this stupid lawsuit is costing her a fortune. And the idiocy of all of these lawsuits is that they all revolve around crap she made up, stuff that she does not have legitimate sources for. If she had legitimate sources, she would have no issue at all. They would say, show me where this came from. Look, it came from this. And that would be it. That would shut it all down. It's just she lacks any nurturing characteristics. There's that. Maria, that happens too. That happens too. You'd think she learned. No, she didn't learn. The only thing she learned is the more outrageous shit she says that comes out of her mouth, the more hits she will get, which translates to dollars. She told me her first month on YouTube, she made $25,000. Looking back, I think that's, well, even then I thought it was unlikely. I thought, oh, that's kind of a high figure. And the reason I say this is when she first joined Pathos, within a month or two, she was on the back channel bragging about making thousands of dollars. And those of us who were old hands had been there forever giggling and going, there's no way, because we knew how much we were making. And at one point we had been making decent money, but at that point, BeliefNet had taken over us, dropped our percentages of what we were making, and nobody was making thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. It had turned into strictly a, hey, I might have enough to buy groceries this month thing. It was not something that anybody did 100% for their support. I could not work outside the house, yet I could not get disability because mastocytosis was not an illness that Social Security Administration recognized as a disability accommodation. So for me to be able to work part-time at the art studio, quilting store, and do my Pathos thing meant that I could bring in enough money to help out with the fact that I had 2 kids in college at the same time. Boys, we clean, and 5 minutes later, it's torn up again. That's kind of the nature of having boys and having kids in the house. But there's a difference between torn up and ground in dirt and crumbs everywhere, shoved down into the like the seams of the sofa. My husband is a giant boy that messes things up. He's just a messy Marvin. And I know that being today is Sunday, and you know what Sunday is, it's time for some football, that he's going to be flaking out on the sofa with his chips in one hand and God knows what in the right hand. I think I made pulled pork barbecue yesterday, so he's probably even dripping barbecue everywhere. So I know what he's done. I'll have to straighten up the sofa, shake out the sofa cover, and then sweep. You know that. Is it the same in your home, Ginger? I am a fantasy football widow until football season is over. And that's okay because I've got other projects I'm working on. I have enough other stuff going on. And yeah, mine's a big kid too. He's a big kid. Yesterday I had to label the dirty clothes hampers and say, do not put wet clothes in this. Do not put wet towels. Towels go here, clothes go here. No wet anything. There is a drying rack outside. Put your wet stuff there. I don't know if he listens. I mean, he's 72. He should be able to. My crafts take over my house. Country Girl Brenda, I got that too. And I have my own room for all that now, though. I got a big bedroom, well, a smallish bedroom for this house, but bigger than some places I've lived. And I have all of my art supplies, all of my crafts there. I have all my canvases, my oil paints. I have all of my quilting supplies. Everything else that I ever might want to do is in there. I mean, everything from soap making to jewelry making to sculpting and all kinds of crazy things. That's my room for that. And it's nice to be able to have a room to do it. But right now I'm in the middle of cleaning that out and I don't like doing that. It's like once a year, you got to go through all your stuff and shift it around and stuff. Why can't I hire somebody to do that? So that's the difference. And I think also the difference, and we're talking about without a crystal ball right now, I don't think she has any hobbies. And I think she has very few friends. I never heard her talk about a hobby in all the time I knew her. Never, never, never. We kind of bonded over the fact that we both had chronically ill children when they were young. But I think there's no outside interest. There's no friends. There's no hobbies. There's no being excited about buying a room full of yarn. There's none of that. She is just like somebody's been flailing around trying to figure out who she is for some years. And this is what she is. It's kind of a shame that she abandoned her original content of chronic illness in children, because she could have done a lot of good had she stayed with that. And that's where the shame is, because there's not that many Well, at that time, there were not that many people that covered how to do these things and how to deal and how to cope with this crap. I keep making promises to myself that I won't buy anymore till I use it all, and then I go to a craft store and come out with more. That's my shame. That's what I do. She could have reached a lot of people. She absolutely could have. Not everybody is used to dealing with a feeding tube. Not everybody understands that you don't always do your child you do your child a serious disservice if you don't figure out a way for them to participate with real life, if you isolate them. That was the big thing that I realized very quickly, that I had to figure out a way to integrate my daughter with her chronic ailments into real life, to unlax enough to let her have sports, let her do sports, even though I was sitting there on tenterhooks because she had a bleeding disorder, and it was always hard for me to let her go, but I knew I had to in order to develop a fully rounded person. Everybody needs to take some sort of hobby or external interest. Yes, it enriches the mind and the soul. Absolutely. Typical of narcissists. They are pretty hollow people, and there's not a strong sense of self. Exactly, Brenda. And they don't know who they are, so they switch personalities all the time. And that's when they pick up bits and pieces from other people. And it becomes a bloodbath for anybody around them when they start stealing parts of their personality and or story. I don't quite know with her how the story is going to end. To me, it just seems like she just keeps getting worse and worse. I don't know what it's going to take to get her offline. And it would be nice if she picked up a hobby. Girl, take up crocheting or knitting. It's not that hard. It's a lot of fun. We all love to do it. And that's where, a lot of us do this stuff. I like gardening. Before I had my last stroke, I'd go out and work in the yard a lot. Now I don't do so much. I do my potted plants and things. She seems angry and unhappy, honestly. Julie, I'm sure she is. If you have no self and you have no sense of self and you feel cheated, you look at everybody else and go, why is this person having their best life ever? Why is this happening? Why is this person this way? And without any kind of idea. I'm just happy she didn't have more than one child, because narcissists don't make very good mothers. And they can do some serious damage to their children. When there's only one child, at least the damage is limited. And I think that the father is a pretty decent father. I'm just going to say that. Yes, I complimented Toad, even though he grossed me out by molesting my favorite snack cake on camera. I love gardening too. Getting dirty and watching growth from season to season is rewarding. It is, Ginger. And you can see what you've done. You can actually gauge where you are, whereas some hobbies you never can. Hey, Grace Peter. So that's what it's like. I make my extra money selling the crafts I make. It's like getting paid for doing something I enjoy. Brenda, that is really awesome. I worked off and on at the studio and at the quilting store. I used to do the same, and I would teach classes right up until the new owner took over and refused to pay any of us for teaching classes. I never understood that. I used to teach crochet. Yes, it is. I'm on a stuffed animal crocheting kick, currently making a unicorn, and I make my boys and nephews and niece whales. They love them. I'm contemplating making a mermaid's tail blanket. So it's like a tube, you put it on and you've got your tail. I've been wanting to do that. I think I'm going to have to get the right color yarns, and I'm going to figure out, I want my mermaid's tail to be very shimmery, but light enough so I can use it here. Like some of my blankets here that I use, just light, very light. So there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do. And like I said, I don't get the lack of everything of pleasurable. You love crocheting? IT said that crocheting and knitting are actually good for the old brain because of the counting of stitches and things, and it requires higher maths to figure out your stitches and how many you need and what goes here and all that. And I can see that. I can see that. So, you guys, I think I've run the gamut of ranting about you know who without a box of Kleenex and her various possible diagnoses. Like I said, I'm not an expert. These are just my stupid opinions. And yeah, so that's the thing. And I hope that Tabitha Jane takes it in to realize that we all make mistakes. The best thing you can do is to pick ourselves up and say, hey, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. And do like we do and just verify everything before you throw it out there as 100% true, unless you're saying, hey, this is speculation, this is opinion, instead of saying that, yes, this is my exclusive, because that's what she does. Love you guys so much. Have a great day.